The ego epidemic. Why your greatest enemy lives in the mirror. Why do we find it so hard to forgive people? Ego. Why is our thinking so negative? Ego. Why am I so depressed and anxious? Ego. Our mental and circumstantial conditions in life have nothing to do with the physical world or the generational curses, and it has everything to do with our ego. Now let's dive deep into this breakdown. Okay, so to start off, let's give a base of what ego is. Ego essentially is the human attempting to isolate itself from the infinite God, right? So ego is the body. Ego is the human who is conscious only of his birth or her birth and where they are now, and that the fact that they will eventually die. Ego is all of your opinions, all of the conceptions which you hold dear to yourself, right? All of the feelings of neglect or anything of that nature. That's your ego. Also, you can think of ego in another way as far as like the grand scheme of the human race. The ego or the egotistical is the life of competing with one another, trying to best your brother and your sister, trying to get somewhere first, trying to get somewhere faster, trying to make the most money, right? That's ego. And a common misconception, you can look at ego and vanity as pretty much the same thing. But a common misconception is that the rich or the people of great wealth are the only people who have a lot of vanity or are full of vanity, which is not true. Vanity is the root of any person who puts great emphasis on the material world. So the people who play that victim game and who play the woe is me, or that's a go-getter, any of those titles, any of those routes, they all express vanity. The whole concept of this whole video is that the ego is what isolates us from God. And when we isolate from God, we are nothing, right? Because God is everything. God does everything. We do nothing. We are only instruments of His. So when we try to isolate from that role that we play, we're going to find a whole bunch of failure, a whole bunch of unhappiness, a whole bunch of hatred, backstabbing, envy, all types of negative things. Now that doesn't mean you can't be egotistical and full of vanity and not make a whole bunch of money or have a powerful impact. God's powers or His creative powers of manifestation can work for a good righteous person and an evil person. And that is why vanity roots from those who put emphasis on the material world, because the material world is just a world of results, right? There is one cause for all things, and that is the mind. As far as the solar system and the planets, those were ideas and conceptions which came from the mind of God. As far as the chair, the door, the bed, those are conceptions that came from the mind of man, which were made manifest through the mind of God. As with everything. So it is the spiritual world, the mental world, where the change happens, where the cause is, and that's the root of all problems. So that is when you begin to connect or unify with God or the one consciousness. And that is where peace is, that is where happiness is, that is where joy is, that is where purposeful living is, right? I remember I was watching a video a while ago, and it was talking about how there was a study done with older married couples, right? That's lasted a long time, and they pretty much were asking them, what was the reason behind you lasting so long and still being happy, right? And all of the answers they gave had nothing to do with materials. It had everything to do with unity and fusion with one another. They said being a part of something that's bigger than themselves, right? They said having unstructured time with their kids. So that just goes to show you, it is the The material world is the least powerful of all the planes, the physical world. It is the mental world, the spiritual world that brings everything into existence. Let me present y'all with a quote from a book called Three Magic Words by U.S. Anderson. Worry and tension, guilt and hostility, resentment and vanity lay the foundations for all of our physical affliction. They spring like growths from our overdeveloped little egos, which are forever being hurt and frustrated in a world which we set out to beat instead of cooperate with. That is the perfect example of vanity. You set out to forge your way to the top when there is no top, right? You only get the top with the 1%, the higher echelon from the material world. It has nothing to do with your mental condition. So that is where we go wrong. We try to beat our brother and our sister instead of cooperate and collaborate. We try to beat time and space when we should cooperate with it, because there's a reason it's there. So that is where the change has to happen. We have to start cooperating with life instead of trying to beat life. I want to present another quote from the same book. He cannot be successful because he is too vain, having no humility. He does not know that all things are done by a mighty Lord, an unknown sage that inhabits all places and all times. Without this knowledge, the go-getter is a molecule vibrating and rebounding crazily in the limits he has imposed upon himself. He has no design to his life because he does not see the design of life itself. Think about that, right? When we try to forge our way and grind hard and, you know what I'm saying, and try to just muscle and will our way to victory, we put limits upon ourselves because we are finite beings, right? But we are connected to something that is infinite, that has no beginning and has no end, and that is all powerful and knows all things. So when we begin to relax and go to that power for all of our problems, for all of our worries, all of our doubts, all of our fears, anything that gets in the way and causes friction in our life, we can then move forward in confidence, knowing that all the answers and the solutions to our problems will find their way to us. Why? Because we are a part of an all-knowing being. But when we try to isolate from that and start to think we're doing everything ourselves and we have no help, or we got to be a lone wolf, we got to be a survivor, you feel me? We got to be all of these things. But there's only one thing, there's only one truth that we can rely upon, and we know it will work 100% of the time, and that's God. This is not meant to be a religious video. This is not meant to be a preachy type video. This is just the fact, and this is the truth. All things come from God. All things are rooted in an infinite. So when we begin to live and accept that truth and operate and move within that truth, there's nothing that is impossible. You feel me? When you know who God truly is and his essence, you know that there's nothing impossible to the mind of God. And we all can tap into the mind of God. It's not subjective to certain people, certain categories, certain statistics and accomplishments. It's for all men and women, all beings. I like to bring up another example. I know a lot of y'all may have heard the Lil Durk situation with him being charged for murder for hire, right? Now, of course, this is not me saying he did anything that they are accusing him of. I truly hope we get our brother back and he's able to go home to his family and kids and live his life, right? But just for the sake of this conversation, when we looking at the situation, Lil Durk, one of the biggest, probably top 5 hip-hop artists right now, as far as streams, impact, catalog, and gold, platinum, all that stuff, right? He has an abundance of money, right? He has a wife. He has a lot of kids, right? He has I'm pretty sure, an even bigger family that he accepts responsibility to take care of, right? But he came from a very toxic, a very barbarian environment, to where if you showed any sign of weakness, you was gonna get ate. You feel me? So with that being said, people will ask the question, why throw all of that away? Why throw away your position, your fame, your time, your freedom with your family, just for get back or just for revenge, right? But if that is true, for anybody that's in that situation, it all comes down to vanity and ego. You think revenge is the answer because that's what the ego thinks is the answer. The ego is emotional. The ego responds to emotion, right? The ego don't want to get embarrassed. It don't want to get critiqued. It don't want to be looked at as a bitch. You see what I'm saying? So when we give into that, we make mistakes like this because we are isolating ourselves from the all-powerful God, right? Like I said when I first started the video, why is it so hard for us to forgive people? The ego. It's nothing else. Ego, pride, vanity. We think too much of ourselves, which is not the real us. My name is Mateo, but that's not the real me. A lot of y'all is like, what? What are you talking about? My name is Mateo, but that's not the real me. Y'all don't know the real me. You can't see the real me. It's invisible, right? It's in my mind. It's my consciousness, my spirit. You can't see that. That is who I am truly, in my real essence. I am attached to an all-powerful God, Allah. That's who I really am. That's who you really are, right? We are not our names. We are not our bodies. We are our minds and our spirits. That is what lives on forever. That's what will always be here, and it's always been here, right? So when we start to tap back into that, our true essence, nothing is impossible, and we can do all things, no matter what it is. I don't care how bad your situation is at the moment. Nothing is impossible to the mind of God, to something that is infinite and knows all things. You feel me? But we get so caught up in this world and caught up in the gossip, the drama, the opinions, right? Who cares if, oh, you talking all this, and you ain't slide for your homie? Who is that guy? The person that's saying that. Do you know him? Do he know you? Do he know what you've been through? Do he know your family? Do he know your position? Do he know what you got going on right now? No. What does he have? His opinion, his ego. Ego, vanity is what creates evil in this world and nothing else, bro. So I would like y'all to take this video into great consideration. You must strip yourself down to nothing in order to see everything for what it truly is, bro. You feel me? To all of my young men out there, all of the guys that's in the trenches, that's coming up in these terrible conditions, man, we greater than our circumstance, bro, much greater. You feel me? We attached to something that's so great. So take that into consideration, man. And when you find yourself or you find evil in your life or negativity being a part of your life, check your ego, bro. Check your ego and tap into what you truly are. An infinite being, a God. All praise is due. That's it for this video, though. Y'all tap in with me on the next video. Like, comment, subscribe. And we going. I'm going to catch y'all in the next one. Peace.